What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm, DFS Alarm, college football live stream here on a championship Saturday. We're finally here, Pete. We've been doing this all season, and we're now here at the conference championships. We had a couple last night, but we got all the good ones, really good ones today. And we got a full DFS slate lasting all day for both DraftKings and FanDuel. So we'll be diving into this. But Pete, good to have you, and we're here for another Saturday. A couple weeks off, but we're back.
Yeah, we were just saying earlier, it feels like we just started, and it was like August.
Yeah.
So that's the thing with college football, right? I mean, it's like NFL lasts forever, but college, like you start, next thing you know, you're done. So it's been a good year. It's been a really good year. It's been a good time.
Yeah, we've been having fun all year, and these shows have been really good for, I think, you and me, but everyone listening, just to get those injury updates as they come in, lineup advice and strategy, just bouncing ideas off each other. Because I learned something from you every week, just like, I maybe I have to think twice about this player, or maybe I overlooked this guy. So I hopefully that happens today. So today, if you guys are just looking at the slate, the two games that headline the slate for sure, the two high scoring games, we got the MAC title game, Kent State and Northern Illinois, and then the ACC championship at night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Wake Forest and Pitt. Those two games totals over 70. No other game on the slate has a total that's that high. A couple that are, in the 50s, mid 50s, but really those two stand out. And we were talking before we went live, so let's just bring that discussion on here. Is Pete, at quarterback, a lot of people, you're gonna have to choose between Kenny Pickett and Sam Hartman as like probably your number one quarterback, and then people's quarterback two super flex is going to come down to the MAC game, Dustin Crum versus Rocky Lombardi. So I mean that's where I think lineups have to begin and end, is making those decisions, whether you're going one way or another in both those games. I mean, you can pair any four of those guys together. I mean, it's hard to pair Hartman and Pickett together, but if you want to make that happen, you can. It just hurts you at every other position. But I think a lot of people's super flex going to come to that MAC game, right?
Yeah, and the way I'm looking at it is, I think you need at least a quarterback from each game. Well, yeah, your super flex and quarterback that I'd be from those two games. And my whole question is, I'm a huge Pickett guy. I almost feel like I'm letting him down if I don't play him today, in the big game. But at 9,700, especially when you got this Wake Forest run defense, it's like one of the worst run defenses in the country. It's I think it's gotten a little bit better. Well, actually, no, it's just still giving up 209 a game. So
yeah.
Way I'm looking now is Go Hartman is a little bit cheaper, so you get a little bit of a savings there. And then I'm running back for that MAC game, and I still have some back in my mind, like I still like chart from last week. We got burned a little bit by Ben Bryant. And he was so chalky and popular, but I think this is a different story between Crum and Lombardi. And man, I like Crum because he's got the legs, the dual threat. I like Lombardi, man, in this game, because we saw that last game when they played I just looked at the days, like November 3rd, and Lombardi went crazy. Everybody remembers him last year when he beat Michigan with Michigan State, and then he broke all kinds of like school records in that game. So Crum is definitely a better quarterback, but watch out for Lombardi, man. So he had 532 yards in that game. 300 went to Rudolph. So you want two of those four quarterbacks definitely in your cash lineups, and you can mess around, in GPPs with some of these other guys.
Yeah, you were mentioning that game earlier this year, Kent State, Northern Illinois. Lombardi went for 500 plus yards and had 38 DraftKings points. This Kent State pass defense is terrible. I mean, it really is one of the worst in the country, and it's been getting torched every single week by MAC opponents, MAC quarterbacks. Lombardi was one of those already, and he'll probably do it again today. I mean, it's just how it's going to go. We were mentioning earlier, before we started up here, that last night's game, Conference USA Championship game, Frank Harris for UTSA and Bailey Zappi for Western Kentucky, just going back and forth the whole game. Both quarterbacks, if you played one or both, they were good for DFS. And it's probably going to be the same in this game. Both sides of Dustin Crum and Rocky Lombardi just going back and forth. I mean, the total is in the 70s, and it's been going up the last couple days because this game is being played in the Lions Stadium, Ford Field, which is it's turf. It's a bowl arena, indoors arena.
Yep.
So it's gonna be
That's a good
like
point.
it's gonna be a track meet. Like this game is gonna be high scoring. Like we don't really need to worry about it. I don't think. I would say it's the
And
MAC, so it's always risky. But
and maybe like we were just talking, because we're saying that you start building your lineups, you get down, you still have like those two spots where you need some guys in the like the $3,500 range. Even in cash, what if you went? I mean, what if you went Lombardi and Crum together and sat Hartman? Because I'm looking at projections. I'm looking at like, I don't know, say like 60 between Crum and Lombardi, and then between Hartman and Crum, I'm looking at like say 70. So is it okay? So it's a 10-point difference, but Hartman's also $22,000 more than Rocky, and we can go somewhere else to get another bigger receiver. I don't know. That might be even an option too to get off all that value you got to come up with to play Hartman and Crum together.
yeah, I don't mind that, and I think I mean, there's easily a chance where Crum outscores Hartman and Pickett. So yeah, I mean, like last game against Northern Illinois this year, he put up 43 DraftKings points with his rushing ability, and he's been doing a lot of that this whole year, just with because he can score a touchdown and rack up yardage rushing wise. The NIU defense is also terrible, just like Kent State. So this is like a good matchup for both sides. But at the same note, like I'd just be scared of if you stack up this game, if you stack up Crum and Lombardi, because it's an early game at 12 Eastern, kicking off shortly here.
He may be out of it quick.
Yeah, and then Wake Forest and Pitt is there looming at 8 o'clock Eastern, and you don't have a piece of it and quarterback wise. Like I'd be very scared not to be in that situation. And also Hartman and and Hartman and Pickett are both they're both about the same prices on both sites tonight. So like if you wanted to later in the night, just kind of be like, oh, if I'm on Hartman or I'm on Pickett, let me just pivot to this guy or this, if you want to have that option. So
remember, Lombardi's not a good quarterback either. So just remember that too. So I mean,
he's just facing a terrible defense and is playing in the MAC. So but yeah, so that's the decision there. And then Hartman versus Pickett. So Pickett, just to mention, he had an illness, a flu-like illness, I think, apparently, early this week, but he's back, expected to play today. So obviously we won't know for sure until later tonight. So I guess that's maybe the reason, if like you want to have that flexibility, if you're planning on playing Pickett and we get last minute word he's out or is still sick or whatever, then you can just go to Hartman. But by comparing those two, I think I'm on Hartman just because of the rushing, right? I mean, he's been racking up rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns like every single week. So I think he's got the safer floor, but obviously, the Wake defense is terrible. So Pickett can easily have a big day. So I'm on either side of that, but I think like maybe just for the slight savings, it looks better to have Hartman, but I don't blame you either way.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm a huge Pickett guy, but with the Wake Forest run defense being so bad, even though Pickett does run, but I mean, Hartman, I just saw the stats. So he's the fourth player in ACC history with 30 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns, and look what Brennan Armstrong did. Look what Tyler Van Dyke did to this Pitt defense. Both of them almost hit like 500 passing yards.
Yeah.
So it's Hartman. Hartman definitely is a play. Plus, you get a $200 difference. And then it comes down to who you hooking Hartman up. You got to hook him up with one of those receivers. We both like Perry, but it looks like Roberson's going to be the popular chalky play and much cheaper. So, yeah. So I think to me, it's Hartman, Crum, and cash probably, and then a few GPP quarterbacks. I'm looking at.
Yeah, let's get to a couple of those now. Some of the cheaper guys. Well, so I mean, we didn't even talk on. This is why I love this slate, because we have yet to talk about Alabama offense, because they're facing Georgia and probably a lower scoring game. The total is low, and below 50. But we've yet to see any offense have success, considerable success against Georgia. Maybe that changes today against Alabama. We'll see, but I doubt it. So I think in GPPs, yeah, roll with Bryce Young and pair him up with one of these high-priced Bama receivers, Jameson Williams or John Mechie. But I think in cash, it'd be, kind of not smart to play him over the guys we were just talking about, right?
Absolutely not. And I think this is the game because to me, Georgia's that once in a generation defense. Like I think they could shut down half the NFL. And this, this is the type of game where we're going to find out, is Jameson Williams really matchup proof? Is Bryce Young really matchup proof? But you know what? At that price, do I want to find that out today in my cash games when I have other guys and better? Somebody asked that in Discord earlier, and that's where I wrote. I put that because great plays. Mechie had targeted 22 times last week, so double digits in 4 of his last 5 games. But we want to find that out this week against Georgia that they're not matchup proof. When you have these great MAC matchups, probably not. But definitely, if you're making more than one lineup, I would have an Alabama lineup in there because you never know. Georgia's right. We've seen it happen, upsets, and it's not like Alabama's not some shit team. So how many teams have brought Georgia to the brink a little bit? I mean, Tennessee game a little bit. I think it was Tennessee, right? Or Missouri won a game of a tough game here. So it was a good team. Bold, I don't think, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people are looking at last week, Alabama offense struggling against Auburn, and I think it's important to note in that is that if you didn't watch or wasn't aware, Jameson Williams got ejected for targeting in the first half of that game, and he was out for a lot of the, obviously all the second half, but a lot of the game in general. And Bryce Young struggled a lot, just trying to find, he's force feeding it to Mechie and some other guys.
Yeah.
And Brian Robinson, the running back, got hurt in that game. So he was out for part of it. So it was just the offense was not in sync and did not look great. It's, on the road rivalry environment against Auburn there. But with Williams back, like Bryce Young is a lot better. I mean, it's just Williams is literally a touchdown waiting to happen every time he touches it. I mean, this guy is such a stud, and Bryce Young clearly favors him over Mechie, has been all year, I think, just as the big play guy. Mechie more maybe PPR, racks up those shorter catches. But yeah, the Bryce Young Jameson Williams combo gonna be contrarian on this slate, but I mean, I'm not gonna tell you not to play these Bama guys. That's like we could see, we've seen at these SEC games, just be surprisingly high scoring sometimes. Alabama, because Alabama's involved, and the other offense. That's the other question in this game is like if this game turns into a higher scoring shootout, like is Georgia going to hang around and be able to go toe to toe with them? And if that's the case, then maybe you're looking at Stetson Bennett on the other side of it as your GPP quarterback. I mean, there's a scenario where you stack up Bryce Young and Stetson Bennett in the same lineup, and then all of a sudden you're that's a very less popular way to go on this slate because no one's going to be playing that pairing, right?
No, and you know what? I just saw it's a decent stat for Stetson Bennett. Now, 3 quarterbacks have gone over 30 fantasy points against Alabama, and they're giving up, I think, a 22-point fantasy average. So, I mean, Bennett 7,300. I still think it's a little bit high for Bennett, but of course for GVPs, that's a decent game stack too because these, like I said. This game can go off. We saw what Cedric Tillman did. We saw what Wan'Dale Robinson did to Georgia. They had decent games. So once again, it's not saying Jameson Williams can't get the stud. So that's a nice little call too. Stetson Bennett's gonna be very low owned, and Bryce Young is gonna be very. I don't even know Bryce Young's prices this week. I had 8,500. So
8,500 DraftKings. Yeah. The game. I mean, with all that being said, I could also see this game ending like 21-17. Yeah. So yeah, well, I think GPPs obviously they're in play. A couple of the guys I just wanted to touch on. I wrote about them in the playbook. If you want to go check that out. By the way, you mentioned the Discord. We are answering you guys' questions on Discord as we normally do. So if you got any of those questions for us here. Ask away and we'll get to them as they come in. But the quarterbacks I just wanted to touch on, if you're looking for maybe some GPP guys or maybe fringe cash, if you're trying to fade the MAC game for your super flex, Spencer Sanders, I think, is in play for Oklahoma State just because of his rushing lately.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, he's cheap enough where you can definitely take that risk. And then Brookshire for San Diego State, I think, in play just because he's back starting, and last game he came back, relieved Lucas Johnson, and he's gonna be, we got word that he's gonna start today. So, and he's got that rushing ability too, the dual threat that we love, and it's only 5,900 on DraftKings, which is, I mean, that's cheap for a guy that could give you 20 DraftKings points. And just like, if that allows you to fit in some of these higher priced, wide receivers that we'll get to, I mean, I don't mind that at all. So, what you like Brookshire, Sanders, or anybody else down here?
Sanders, the Sanders Tay Martin combo is like my favorite GPP. I mean, I'm definitely not playing Spencer Sanders in cash, but he had a bad week last week against Baylor. But we all know Sanders can run the ball. And we haven't really seen that dual threat much this year, but we could see it definitely today. So I love that. I think him and Martin could actually win somebody a GVP with a comeback, with like a pick at Addison or something like that if you have the money. And Brookshire, I think Brookshire is like the only cheap quarterback you could really play, like somebody down there. They've thrown a ball 34, 36 times the last couple weeks he's played. And this is a running team, but Brookshire can run also. The only thing that worries me is you got Lucas Johnson sitting there too, and Lucas Johnson can very easily go in that game if Brookshire has some hiccups. So that would be the only thing keep me away from Brookshire. But GUP definitely, you hook up Brookshire, then you can get a pick at Addison if you use Brookshire on the comeback, I guess, on Superflexes too, right?
Yeah, I mean the Brookshire is definitely the cheapest quarterback I'd be willing to play in cash. And maybe even GPP because I'd rather have him over, Cade McNamara, Spencer Petras. I'm not going there. So the Chase Bryce even I'm not going there. But yeah, I like the Brookshire, and let's get to running back now because we're just talking about Brookshire. I think this Utah State running defense isn't the best. I think they're below average in general, and a matchup against this dual threat quarterback and then running back Greg Bell could be interesting. I think if Greg Bell's 5,200, I mean he's a value on the slate, and just talking about this running back position overall, it's not great. There's not like that slam dunk lock play that you want in your cash lineups. GPP can go in any direction. Hassan Haskins leads the way pricing wise, but you can go in any different direction, I think, for cash or GPP on this slate, right? For running back.
Yeah, I think the running back is what's actually gonna make or break your slate. I think when and nothing against Marquez Cooper, because once again you're going up against that bad NIU defense. But when Marquez Cooper is your top running back on a slate, you have some room to play. I think.
And he's gonna end up being like the chalky cash running back, right, Cooper?
Definitely. I mean, I'm looking at Cooper probably being like 35% owned, and all that's more than Ducker. Probably gonna end up playing him because it was once again when when Northern Illinois is giving up 217 yards on the ground. And, but once again, the problem with all these MAC running backs, man, Cooper's probably the safest. But I like Xavier Williams too, is going to be really low owned. And I think, Williams is there. But once again, you got to worry about Crum vulturing too, because Crum's a runner. So I don't think Cooper is the best running back on a slate. He's definitely going to get there. He's definitely playable in cash. But you can drop $2,000, get Xavier Williams, who could definitely run a couple in too. And I think Xavier is just as talented as Cooper, and that may be where you get a little value. But Greg Bell to me is the running back of the slate. That Utah State's got some decent numbers. That defensive line doesn't scare me right now. And I've been on Bell since day one this week, and I can't go off him now. So I'm definitely Bell's my runner. And then, like we were saying earlier, maybe we go this week. We go 3 runners this week, like a Bell, Cooper, and then like maybe X or Blake Corum. Blake Corum's the one everybody's talking about, right? Corum's the wild card here too.
Yeah, the Corum is so cheap. at 4,300 on DraftKings. Like he should not be that cheap.
No.
And because a couple weeks ago he was, it was basically him and Haskins splitting the work and both having really good games.
Big games.
Yeah, because of how
that one week had that huge game. Remember we talked about playing both of them.
Yeah, like at 4,300, he could break the slate and just have a massive game. At the same time, he's coming off that injury. Last week he didn't get, he had one long run, which makes his yardage look a lot better. He had 6 carries for 87 yards. He had a 55-yard run, but he just didn't get as much work in that game with Haskins getting a workload, and having a lot of success against Ohio State. Yeah, so he's the hot hand. But like Corum is his talent. If you just watch Michigan play, he's got like that game breaking speed. Like he could definitely break a long run and easily return value here. Interestingly, on DraftKings, he's cheaper than he was last week. He's 4,400 last week.
And he's healthy, right? Because I was
you'd think so
about that, but you didn't even see Corum until I think like end of the first quarter, early second quarter. And I'm saying to myself, is he not healthy or are they riding a hot hand? But then when I saw him rip off that 55-yard run, I'm like, he looked pretty damn good. He looked pretty damn healthy to me. And I think that just because Haskins was having such a good game, was hot, they just kept running with him. But we know Harbaugh. We know he's going to feed his workhorses. So is Corum? I mean, I think Corum's going to be popular. Corum could take over the slate really. So I'm not sure. So I'm not going to pay for Haskins today.
Yeah. If you're like comparing the two, I mean, definitely like Corum over Haskins. Just in general, like comparing the prices, but the Corum call. I mean, we know the Michigan offense is going to be run heavy. It's just what they are, and even against Iowa here, the rush defense is one of the better ones that Michigan has faced all year. But still, we just know that the Haskins and probably Corum are going to get their carries. It's a matter of what they do with it. And by the way, before Corum got hurt, he was involved as a receiver out of the backfield. If Michigan was throwing it, a decent amount of those targets were going to the running backs. And I think like that aspect just gives Corum a little bit more. If he has a couple catches in this game and in addition to maybe at least 50, 60 rushing yards, we'll say, and maybe even, if he sneaks into the end zone, boom, you're at value. So yeah, Corum definitely a good call. And I'll admit, I mean, I kind of looked past him when I wrote up the playbook. I think it was just one of those things where I just kind of was like, I was like, I don't know about Corum. Is he healthy? Whatever. But I was looking at some other values, but like going back on it, I mean, that's one thing I would definitely change is include him more, because just thinking about it the last couple of days, it's like Corum is way too cheap for this slate, right?
Yep. And we just got some news now.
Okay.
So just said that Blake Shapen's going again today over Bohannon for Baylor. So
okay,
that does bring to me Tristan Ebner into the picture. What's Ebner's price this week? I was just looking for it as you were talking. I don't know why I can't find Ebner's price.
I think he's 5,300 on DraftKings.
He did go up, but we saw how the kid there, how Shapen was definitely using Ebner as a security blanket last week. 4 catches, 118 yards, touchdown. So he's definitely involved in the passing game. So does that mean? I know it's only. I've seen. I think 2 weeks because he actually came in that Kansas State game.
Yeah.
But Ebner is now part of the conversation. I think, man, if Ebner was 4,500, I would lock him right in. The 3 is a little bit tougher, but he becomes more of a play today, I think, with this Blake Shapen quarterbacking.
Yeah, Blake Shapen. Yeah, he played relieved Bohannon 2 weeks ago. Kansas State started last week against Texas Tech. Was a decent. I mean, he's 6,100 on DraftKings. I'm not looking there against Oklahoma State's defense. Just being so good here. But the Ebner call is nice. I do wish he was below 5K on DraftKings too.
Yeah,
because that would be.
And you're right. Oklahoma State, that defense, is a tough call. But it's just definitely GDP, something else to look at.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. If you're like, But and if you're comparing Ebner to Abram Smith, I think I like Ebner more for pricing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like that call as like a cheaper running back. I mean, so out of these, the top guys, I mean, we talked about Haskins, Brian Robinson Jr. questionable with he got injured last week. We'll see if he plays, but I just think you can't play him against Georgia's defense. I mean, yeah, he might score a couple touchdowns in this game, but I just think that if they're going Bama at all, I'd go with the passing attack in GPPs rather than Robinson. I'd rather pay for Jerome Ford for Cincinnati, just back in that workhorse role. I'd rather go him for $200 cheaper on DraftKings.
Yep.
But any of these high priced guys you're looking at, because we'll get to the receivers in a second here, because those are like, the high priced receivers are what we're kind of prioritizing. And we talked about those quarterbacks already, but when you're talking about Jalen Warren being on the slate, Abram Smith, Tyler Goodson, Zamir White is out there. I mean, any of these guys interest you?
No. If anything, I would run maybe Jalen Warren, even though we know he's and we said it a month ago, this is going to happen. He's getting 35, 40 touches a game. But he is going to get most of the snaps today. But so he had 124 in the last matchup. I think the only other running back I'm kind of looking at to catch like a Jay Ducker, especially. You want to see if Harrison Whaley's out. If Harrison Whaley's definitely out, then Tucker to me becomes near elite for NIU. Because once again, everybody's talking about how bad this NIU defense is, and less are they talking about how bad this Kent State defense is just as bad as NIU.
Yeah.
So a guy like Ducker, the problem is with Ducker, and we played a lot of MAC this year because they're during the week, is Ducker gets vultured by Rakovich. But still, I think Ducker's a really good play if Whaley's out, because Rakovich is garbage. He had that 95-yard run. I think and then he ended up with less than 100 yards on the game last week. But Ducker's, I think, is a good play. But everything else there, it's all like MAC guys. They're all like these RBBCs, all like two-headed monsters, like the Nate Noels and the Cameron Peoples. All these guys could go off, but which one we don't know.
Yeah,
pit runners.
I'm staying away from the App State backfield for sure. So Ducker is like a really good matchup against Kent State's rush defense. I like that call. Wrote about him in the playbook for sure, because just that matchup, and he had a good game against them earlier, as you said. Rakovich, he's too expensive right now. I mean, if he was below 4K, I'd be like, yeah, he could score a touchdown and return value, but he should not be where he's priced, because they priced him up just because he's been scoring a touchdown every week, but he's just he's giving you nothing else besides that touchdown. So it's just dependent on him scoring, not going there. But I mean, Ducker for sure is a nice cheap option on the slate. Let's talk about this Pitt backfield, because we've mentioned Wake's Forest defense, rush defense, or overall their defense, but the rush defense is terrible. But we just don't have a lead running back in this Pitt offense to kind of lock in for cash. Any of these guys are in play for GPP. We're waiting word, but it's the night game, so we won't know for sure. But it's expected that Abinaconda is back tonight. He was the lead guy earlier this year. Last game with an injury. So if he's back in the mix, it muddies it even more. Before we had Rodney Hammond and Vincent Davis splitting the work the last couple games. And, I heard about Vincent Davis in the playbook with just the thought that he has been the most productive guy, and he's under 5K on DraftKings. So if you're going GPP, I like him over the other guys just for the little bit of savings and probability that they all just split work and take away from each other. But I think Vincent Davis has been the most productive and kind of the hot hand in that rotation. So part of me thinks like he might have the better game, but Abinaconda being back just throws a whole wrench in the situation here.
Yeah, definitely muddies that. And I thought last week, and I learned my lesson, because 2 weeks ago was it when Addison had a huge game, was against Virginia. And I watched that game, in a whole second half, they talked about Rodney Hammond, the talent he is, and they ran a shot at him in that second half. And then last week's that 7 o'clock slate, when I saw Zeke, whatever you call him, Bamba was out. I was going back and forth on Hammond and Davis. And I knew in the back of my mind to use Hammond because I watched the game before that, and I went Davis and Hammond went off. So I just think, but yeah, I think it's even confirmed that Abakanda is back. But once again, this Wake Forest rush defense is bad. It's luck. You can play all three of those. What is Abakanda's salary? Davis and Hammer about the same. I don't even see his salary anywhere.
He's 5,700 on DraftKings.
I'm not. So to me, he's an out. I would be looking at Hammond or Davis. And Davis is the best, right? I mean, if they have more trust in him, I guess, then.
Also, you mentioned Hammond. I mean, I like Hammond 4,800 on DraftKings. I think like if you're going one of these pick guys, him and Davis for under 5K are the way to go over Abanikanda, because just he's 5,700. I'd rather for that price. I'd rather honestly. I mean, you got Jay Ducker at 5,600, so it's like why would you pay for you got Tristan Ebner at 5,300. We were just talking about so. Greg Bell at 5,200. So there's a lot of other ways I'd go rather than Abanikanda. But the Vincent Davis, Hammond, both could or either could have 20 DraftKings points on this slate. If they score a touchdown, have close to 100 yards. I mean, it's definitely in the cards just because of this matchup and high scoring environment against Wake. At the same time, Pitt's offense can be pass heavy at times, and maybe if Wake gets an early lead, they are small favorites here. If they have the lead, maybe we just have the Pitt offense throwing more. So that scares me a little bit about the Pitt rushing attack. So we'll see.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's just GPPs, I think. Like it's just the pick guys. Yeah.
If entering, I'd run one Hammond and one and Davis and another. But I think one of them may end up having a good game. Another name I like down there is I'm looking at that price range is Montreal Jackson for Louisiana Lafayette. I mean, he's in there with Chris Smith. These guys are all like GPPs. But I like this Johnson because the Wildcat and. I mean, it's a tough matchup, but all you need is a couple TVs. So I kind of like this Montreal Johnson GVPs as a sneaky play. This is the Wildcat.
Yeah, the Louisiana backfield, another one that's just kind of ugly on the slate. I mean, just no lead guy to trust. Oddly enough, the name you didn't mention is Imani Bailey, who I wrote about in the playbook because he has been also getting work. I mean, all these guys have been involved. So it's like, GPPs, I think if you're looking in that cheap range also, it's just them and the Pitt guys that you can take chances on.
I had Bailey in a couple lineups. I know already. I know. So
I mean, he's been okay. And this is another game against App State. It's a rematch from earlier in the year. So maybe it's just a tighter game where it's low scoring and hard to trust for like cash. Not many touchdowns probably gonna be scored in this one, but I mean, Bailey could easily get in the end zone. So, or Johnson or Smith, from that matter. So yeah, that's the way to look there. No, go ahead. Were you saying something?
No, I said you hit it. You hit it right on the button.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I mean, all the other running backs we didn't mention. I mean, you could take flyers on, but I think like that's the kind of the pool that me and Pete are looking at here. Let's get to receiver.
I think it's play Cooper. Yeah. So popular, and then pick out one or two other guys and pray.
Yeah, I will say, I mentioned this off air before we went live here. I do think there's a path where you can, if you want, you can stack up, because a lot of people are going to stack up Kent and NIU this game. So I think there's a way you can stack up Kent or Cooper and Williams in that backfield for the Kent State backfield. Yes. Just because they've been splitting some work. Cooper has been the main guy, but Williams is still involved, and it's just this matchup against NIU is really good. So, I think if you just want to lock in all the production from that backfield, and if you have Dustin Crum, even better because you get all the rushing yards from that backfield. Then
it's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. I mean, yeah, if this this high over 70 Vegas total is any indication, this game's gonna And last night's Western Kentucky, shootout.
Yep.
I think there's going to be like 80 points combined in this game. So it's, yeah.
Yep. And like you said, indoor. I wasn't even thinking about the whole indoors factor. I forget about that a lot.
Yeah, like that factor too. I mean, it's probably going to be back and forth. I mean, and that's the beauty of the slate. That's the noon game. There's only 2 noon games, so we got that one and Baylor, Oklahoma State kicking off at noon, and then a lot of the later games to wrap up the slate. But that game just, a high total to start your slate, and then we got the Pitt Wake Forest game to wrap it up at 8. So a good nightcap there. Let's get to receiver here. And speaking of that Pitt Wake game, I think like if you're paying up for a receiver, which I think a lot of people will try to do because we have 3 guys I think you can definitely look at the top here for cash. And that's Addison from Pitt, just being a stud all year, and now got this dream matchup. A.T. Perry for Wake Forest, good matchup on his side in that high-scoring game, ACC title game. And then I think for Wake too, people are going to overlook him maybe, or maybe he'll be more popular than I think. But Ja'Quari Robertson for Wake, just kind of taking a backseat to A.T. Perry, but in this high-scoring environment, this good matchup, he could easily bounce back and have a couple touchdowns, 100+ yards, and just be that have a better game than some of the other guys that you're looking at. So. Out of those guys or anybody else I mentioned, because we got a lot of really good receivers on the slate, but you could throw Dante Cephas in from Kent into that mix. Trayvon Rudolph or Tavion Rudolph, I think, is definitely in the mix again. Because he's the top guy for NIU against this Kent defense. So. I mean, any of those guys, you're definitely locking in.
Yeah, for cash, Trayvon's my dude. I'm locking Trayvon in.
Okay.
That is, what is he? 6,900. I mean, he broke MAC records that game. The last game these 2 teams played, over 300 yards receiving. Yeah, he went off, especially in. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but as long as Tyrese Ritchie's out. I even like Rudolph even more. So locking Rudolph in. I think for cash, I think you got to lock in Ja'Quari, even though I like A.T. Perry better. Ja'Quari's $1,200 less. We know Pitt likes to give up that big play in the air. Ja'Quari's a big play player. Too cheap. There's going to be 70 points in that game. It's not all going to A.T. So I'm running Ja'Quari, Rudolph. Then I got to go real cheap for my third and find that third cheapie. Where I'm not sure who's going to be. I like Deshaun Polk from Kent State. I like Corey Sutton. Corey Sutton's a little bit too expensive, but definitely it's Robertson and Rudolph for me. And to me, Addison, I'd love to play Addison. I love him, but I just think you're not going to be able to get Addison in a cash.
Yeah, the Addison, I would love to play him. I really would, but I don't think you can. 9,300 is really tough to stomach here.
You want to get him in somewhere. You want to get him in. You want to get Tompkins in somewhere too. Devin Tompkins and GVP somewhere.
I know. Devin Tompkins, arguably the most talented receiver in action here. But people just aren't going to look at him. I mean, against San Diego State is a tough defense, tough matchup. But Tompkins could easily break the slate and be the highest scoring receiver. So
yep, definitely can.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tay Martin being an option. If you want to go GPPs, you stack him with Spencer Sanders. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The Bama guys we mentioned earlier, GPPs. If you're playing Bryce Young, you can play Jameson Williams or John Mechie. I do like the A.T. Perry versus Robertson call is a tough one for me because I really want to play Perry. He's just been the touchdown machine, right?
And that could be the call today because he's going to be low owned. I mean, everybody's going to Roberson. So to me, Perry's the call. I just don't think I can get to Perry if I'm using Rudolph for that extra money. So Perry could definitely win the slate for you. I think he's going to be low owned.
Yeah, I think that's the call. Like if you want to fit 2 top tier receivers in, like you said, Rudolph and Robertson, both in the 6K range, you won't be able to obviously play, A.T. Perry or Jordan Addison and fit another top tier guy in the same lineup at receiver. So unless you find value, both running back spots and maybe a cheaper quarterback. But I think a lot of people would have to decide between Perry versus Robertson versus, Rudolph here. That looking back at his game logs, by the way, Rudolph, just that I remember it because I was watching it, but the smash spot he had against Kent State early this year. Part of me thinks that what?
That was a game I played. I think I played Richie that game, and I didn't play Rudolph that game. I remember that. I watched that game too.
I'm pretty sure I played Rudolph because I just remember like watching it and be like, is he still racking up yardage here?
It was crazy.
How
many did he get? Like 70 DK. What did he get that night?
Yes, I'm looking at it, 65.9, and he was at 5,900.
He had 2 touchdowns.
He was at 5,900 that slate. By the way, if you take out that game, like he has been having good games DFS wise.
He's had
like
too. Yep.
Last week against last week it's tough to get a read because Rocky Lombardi was out for Northern Illinois, but he only had 2 receptions for 0 yards. Must have had like a negative one there because he did have a 4-yard catch, but then the game before that, he had 27 DraftKings points. So like he is definitely the guy. I do want to talk about Cole Tucker here because I like him a lot on the slate. He's got that questionable tag on DraftKings, but he is listed as a starter in the depth chart. He's going to be playing. Like Lombardi last week, it seems like he just sat out for rest or precautionary reasons because it was a meaningless game ahead of this MAC title game. So I think this game's coming up at noon Eastern, so maybe we try to see if we have official word here in a minute. But I think if Cole Tucker's out there at $5K, he's pretty cheap, and if you don't want to pay all the way up for Rudolph, you can go down to Tucker for maybe similar production. Definitely not as high of a ceiling, but maybe a decent floor for $5K.
Mm-hmm. Especially with Richie out, he's gonna get double digit targets. I'm assuming with Richie out, that's not all going to Rudolph. So.
Yeah, and again, I'm just doing some searching here just to, of course, with these MAC games, you never have official word until right before kickoff. But yeah, like we're expecting Richie to be out. He's doubtful. He's been out the last few weeks, so I think we can, Tucker is the better play obviously than Richie because he's gonna be playing. Let's stick with these cheap receivers because we gotta find some value here.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What is your thinking on George Pickens at 3K? I watched him last week, and you could tell it was one of those games like, let's just get, the guy was ACL. I know my daughter has had ACL. It takes a good year. He's been a year. We know Pickens. Pickens is AJ Green. He's that type of player. And you can see the coaches talking to him. It was more like, get your legs together and all that. Is big game. Does Pickens show up today at 3K? Because man, you put I'm not saying cash, but you put Pickens in that lineup. That 3K is going to be. There's really nobody on this slate besides I like Deshaun Polk, the Kent receiver. There's nobody really that's around at 3K range you can play for value, and we know what Pickens can do. But
it's a very interesting situation there because. I think I saw him down there and forgot that he was back.
Me too. I saw him running a route.
He tore his ACL in spring, and now he's back, which is a very fast return.
So what was the spring? I thought it was like a year ago.
It might have been. I'm not sure exactly when, but it says spring practice. He tore it. I'm not sure when it happened, but that could mean like March. But yeah,
3K Pickens.
The fact that he played last week. The fact that he played last week, and I gotta be honest, I didn't watch that game because I knew it was gonna be a blowout against Georgia Tech, and there were other games to watch last Saturday, but. How much was he on the field? Was he out there with the starters?
He wasn't on the field much, but now I heard it or read it somewhere. I wish I kept it before we went on. That Pickens has been practicing with the starters too, and that was another. And it was before we came on. I meant to bring it up to you, and don't take that as gospel. I can't remember where. I don't know if it was GameDay mentioned it or somebody, but I was just trying to pick. I was trying to find his number of snaps from last week. But it seemed like this last week was the week where to get him back out there again. It was against a shit team. And get them ready for this is a big game this week. This is like the first big game of the year, really. Yeah. And okay, so he had one target, one reception. Why can't I find his snaps? Well, whatever. Would he played 3 snaps? That's what I'm saying. So but still, it's George Pickens. You know what I mean? We've seen Pickens. With 2019, I'm seeing 8 TDs, 700 and something yards. So he's a talent, but 3K, big game. It's
especially if they're just looking for like if they're looking for some kind of game breaking talent to kind of keep this if they find themselves in a close game where they just need someone to make a play.
I'm still on. You guys hear me? Okay. Okay. I thought I was when I lost. All right. So just before Dean comes back on, I was actually now tweeting too as they're talking about Pickens playing the whole game and all that. So and I'm not saying go out and play George Pickens in cash. Absolutely, I'm just saying he's 3K. Most guys you play at 3K. What are you expecting for? You're hoping to get 6-7 points from him. Maybe 9 to make value. But I just don't want anybody to confuse me and say I'm endorsing to play George Pickens in cash, which I'm not. But 3K is cheap for a guy that's proven himself, and he's a playmaker. I said I've always compared him to AJ Green. So it's just out there. GVP, want to throw him out there, and maybe I can get you if you do like a Pickett, Hartman stack or something, game snack, something like that. So
yeah, and I was saying before,
watch him have 2 touchdowns today in hell.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like actually in the cards. I mean, he could easily do that. Right? He's that talented.
Right.
But I was mentioning before, Kiers Jackson got hurt last week in the Georgia Tech game, rib injury, and apparently he's gonna be a game time decision today. But he's one of their top receivers. So if we get word that he's out, then Pickens is maybe that's why he's been playing with the starters. That makes Pickens a lot more interesting, I think. So, yeah, good call there. I want to bring up I want to ask you then about Lucas Krull for Pitt, the tight end. Is he? I mean, he's 3,900 on DraftKings. I think he's like a nice cheap way to get exposure to the Pitt offense. I just don't want to be like too overweight on him, I think, just because of this offense being not as high scoring as Wake's, or maybe busting just a little bit because of Pickett's weird illness status. But I think Krull's a nice value on the slate. What do you think about that?
What's Krull is what 30? Am I thinking 3,800? I gotta get better having the salaries in front of me.
3,900 on DraftKings.
And we know all year now, Krull actually started out, was really having a good at the beginning. He was definitely getting like 4 or 5 targets a game. He went to I think he scored in 4 out of 5 games. And then Bartholomew came and started getting a lot more of the action. Yeah. And now I'm seeing he had 7 targets last week against SU, 6 catches a week for that 3 weeks. So he's had 10, 15 targets last 3 weeks. So definitely, and it gets you a cheap piece of that game. So once again, there's going to be 70-something points scored in that game. It's not all going to be Addison. Jared Wayne hasn't shown me anything. And I want to play Jared Wayne, especially with everybody else out. But I could see a TD going to Krull or Bartholomew. And I've been on Krull as my top value all week. And I said I've kind of moved a little bit toward Jay Sean Polk. But they're the same price. So I think I may get burned by going poke over Cruel. So that usually happens when I'm on somebody all week and I switch. But definitely, I'm glad you brought that up because that's another one of your pieces that if you're going to go that low, you might as well go with somebody in a high implied game, and that would be Cruel, who we know has caught touchdowns. We know that Pickens likes them. They use them, so yeah, that could be your 300 guy.
Yeah, so Taysier Mack is probably out again. He's been out for Pitt.
I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I mean we have no idea. We haven't got an official word on it, but I would assume he's out again. And you got I mean that's why Lucas Cruel has been more involved in these recent games. Like you said, so cheap options in these high total games is probably a good way to go if you're looking for some salary savers. And poke for Kent State is a great option. I think Nakeem Johnson 4,100 for Kent State is also an option.
What's Gavin Bartholomew's price? He had five targets last week too. Before that too, he had 50 yards. So he had a touchdown last week against SU. I just know that they like Gavin Bartholomew.
He's been splitting work with Cruel there at the tight end position. Yeah.
He's had 3 TDs in the last 4 weeks.
He's 3,700 on DraftKings, Bartholomew. So he's also like Jared Wayne for Pitt is 4,400, but he just hasn't taken full advantage of the new playing time with Mack out. So I think I'd rather play like you mentioned Bartholomew or Cruel over Wayne for me. But just a cheap way to get exposure to that game. Because if the Pitt backfield is just another one, like you just can't, like those guys are so cheap, but I don't know if that's the way I want to go cheap wise to this game.
Another name I see keep popping up too in that game is Donald Stewart, 3,600. Now last 3 weeks, 6 targets, 8 targets, 6 targets, great game environment. Maybe negative game script. What about Stewart at 3,600? I've seen in other places, I've seen his names popping. I don't know about any kind of ownership, but I kind of forgot about the Stewart kid too.
Yes, Stewart's interesting. I think Taylor Morin at 4K on DraftKings is interesting as well.
That's another too,
the thing with me for Wakes, and it's kind of the same with Pitt, but it's just very top heavy for the receivers. Like for Pitt, it's Addison just doing everything for them, and all the other guys, filling in here and there. And for Wake, it's basically been Perry and Robertson being the studs. So it's like if you want
like 2 big games, that's it pretty much.
Yeah, and these guys, these other guys, I mean, with the high scoring environment or whatever, like any of them could score a touchdown or have a few catches. But I think I just think it's a weird comparison. But like if you're thinking about last night, the Western Kentucky offense, you had their names are just Tinsley, Stearns and Tinsley are like the 2 headliners, and all the receiving production is just funneled to them basically. So it's like you want the top guys. Sometimes it's just how college works, is that the quarterbacks just funnel in on their top guys. And in a game like this, I mean, Sam Hartman's been doing it all year with Perry and Robertson. He'll probably keep doing it again. So
I agree.
But I mean, like Stewart, I mean, 3,600 is really cheap for him. So I don't mind something like that if you're looking for a GPP option there. I wrote about this guy in the playbook. We wanted to ask you about him before we get out here. Singleton for Houston. I mean, I think like Houston's probably gonna be trailing Cincinnati in this game. The total's in the mid 50s, so it's not like it's gonna be a high scoring game, but Houston's probably going to be throwing more often than they usually are. I think some of these cheaper Houston receivers are are better options than maybe we originally thought. I could see like Nathaniel Dell is their lead guy, but he just might see all the best coverage from Cincinnati, and Cincinnati's got some good corners that they might just put their best guy on him and try to take him out. And so it leaves someone like Singleton, who's now been getting a lot more work with Keyshawn Carter out, being the number 2 receiver for Singleton. He's 4,300 on DraftKings. I do like him just as like an interesting floor guy. Maybe gives you double-digit DraftKings points with with a few catches, 5 catches or something for PPR.
Yeah, so I've seen Dell now. His percentage in the slot now is going up to like 80% like the last 3 weeks, and but that I don't know what Cincinnati's nickel corner is, but that may be one of their weaker ones. But I just know like most of the year, unless I'm wrong, you always wanted to play the slot against Cincy. Well, Tyler Snead was a slot guy from ECU. He had like 10 targets last week, but I love Dell, but yeah, I mean, how many targets Singleton get last week?
Oh, I don't have the targets in front of me.
I just had Houston up here. Actually, I have it right here. So that actually may not be a bad call because now once again it was against UConn. No, he had 7 targets last week. Memphis, he had 8 targets. So yeah, so the last 2 weeks he's seen 15 targets in the last 2 weeks. Since he's just tough to mess with, man. But
I know it's like imagine the level of competition. You're going from UConn to Cincinnati here. That's a tough one. But yeah, he's had at least 5 catches and 80 yards in 3 of the last 5 games.
And I watched Cincy in person 2 weeks ago against USF, and
yeah,
they're beatable. That might be a sneaky call there because anytime you see a guy with 7 or 8 targets when he's that cheap, you gotta pay attention. I love you. At least they're on the field and something can happen. The big guy's Blaine Green at 3,500 for Oklahoma State. He's healthy now, and he's seeing he's seeing a lot of targets too. So $500 is a cheap one.
I almost wrote about him up in the playbook as like a really good value. Just like sneaky yeah, play. I think like people aren't going to play him over like if you're like you said, Deshaun Polk is like a nice cheap option in that high scoring game, or we were talking about Lucas Krull. But like someone like Green it could give you similar production or better for about the same price, sub 4K.
He's getting 5 targets a week. This is against Oklahoma, Texas Tech. So
yeah.
But it says all these guys are kind of similar. All of them, one of them could really go off, but which one's going to go off? I like this week, but it's not. It seems like the last few weeks have all been like 2v2s. But I think you're going to see a bunch of different lineups this week, which I kind of like, especially with these values. There's not the 1 or 2 value everybody's going to play, which is cool. So
yeah. By the way, we have reports Rocky Lombardi and Cole Tucker both warming up for Northern Illinois. So I guess more official word that they will be playing. We expect them to be playing, but they both sat out last week. So that's just some good news there. If you're thinking about playing them. I think so just looking forward, because we only have the 2 early games, these 2 noon games kicking off shortly here. And then we have the later, later afternoon games and the 2 night games. So if you're just thinking about like if we're in Discord today helping people make pivots or anything, like is there some kind of late pivot, maybe some late injury news that you're definitely paying attention to? I don't think there's like any huge injury. Maybe if we get word that like Abinaconda's out for Pitt, maybe that's something we look, bump up Hammond or Davis more, but it's these late games, this full day, schedule is going to be interesting. I mean, it's like, FanDuel's been doing this all year, but now we got DraftKings doing it. So
we're not used to this.
So yeah, you just have to pay attention late, injury news. There's a chance anybody could be out in this day and age of COVID and college football not reporting injuries. So I think it's just something we got to pay attention to.
At least they're big games though, so we have an idea. Most of the big guys are going to play. It's not like week 3. So I really don't see much. Maybe some pivots, like if you go into 4 p.m. or 8 p.m. when you're down, you want to make a crazy pivot. Say maybe take a chance on like a Desmond Ritter instead of a Hartman or something. You know, I don't know, something like that, because you're you know, one of your guys just didn't do anything. You got a 0 from running back, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there is some pivots. Guys like Ritter who are GPP plays, or a Bryce Young that you could possibly go to. We didn't even mention another guy like Clayton Tune. I think Clayton Tune's a good play this week for Houston, but you know, something like
we
that.
didn't even mention Ritter until right now.
Yeah, sure. Yes, exactly. And Ritter could score the most points on his whole slate. So that's the things you want to look at. You can, pop us questions in Discord. If you're all of a sudden you get your doors blown in, it's happened to me. Next thing you know, I made 1 or 2 moves, and it actually happened last night in college basketball. I made 3 moves between 6 and 7, and after a lock, and turn my whole lineup around. So that's one thing a lot of people in DFS don't do, is they set their lineup and then they go off and do their day, and they don't go back and look halfway through and see some pivots they can make, and actually can make a difference between making money or not.
No, that's a really good point. And like you mentioned, if you had too much exposure or whatever to this Kent and an IU game coming up shortly, and like you said, if 1 or 2 guys kind of bust for you and you're looking to make it big, I do love what you just said about making the pivots, because like you could pivot to, Bryce Young and Jameson Williams. Then all of a sudden those guys could give you, 50 or more DraftKings points combined. So it's
8% ownership.
And if you know that people are going with the Sam Hartman and Robertson or Perry pairing, then yeah, I like that a lot. If you're just like, all right, I'm going to pivot and try to make room for Jordan Addison to try to get that guy in my lineup.
It's going to be lower owned in cash. There you go.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, a great point there to close out this week's stream here. We'll be in the Discord helping you guys out. Appreciate you guys watching, listening, building lineups with us. As always, me and Pete will be providing any injury updates or late news or lineup advice in the Discord. And just to mention, Pete has the college basketball playbook out for today. So if you are playing, you're all in the college space, go check his playbook out.
Yeah.
And we are both, half hour lock there. So get over there. And we'll be covering, as you guys have seen, the college basketball season all year. So definitely check out those playbooks. Well, Pete, it's been good. Let's cash today, and let's hope for a high scoring Kent State Northern Illinois game here.
Here you go. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you, everyone.